We live in a society where everybody thinks that you should be able to do everything and be everything to everybody. That stress is a badge of honor, and that, you can sleep when you're dead, and all of these other things. Your body will shut you down. When you go into stress mode, you stop being able to access your intellectual part of your brain. The whole stress system shuts down anything that is not required to get you away from the saber-toothed tiger. The law of attraction is one of 12 universal laws. People only talk about that. Well, it's 1/12. You can't isolate just the attraction and not take into account the rest of the laws. 2% of the population has 95% of the wealth. Only those who have the wealth have that empowerment mindset. We were purposefully disempowered for somebody else's power and control. And we have to undo that. AI and automation is taking out the menial, repetitive tasks in our world, which gives people the opportunity to step into their higher selves. There is pain on the other side of everything good. Yep. And when we try to avoid one, we're losing out on the other. Women started to have that woman's movement, and now women started overcompensating and becoming very masculine. We've been told a lie.
Welcome to tonight's episode of The Health King's Court. I'm your host, Zach the Health King. A quick disclaimer to keep myself out of trouble. Anything that you hear in this podcast is not intended to be taken as medical advice. The thoughts and opinions you hear shared are just that, thoughts and opinions. And any action that you take based on what you hear is done at your own risk. And with that said, enjoy the show. Okay, everybody, welcome to today's episode of The Health King's Court. I'm your host, Zach the Health King. Today I have a very interesting guest with me. We're going to dive into the art of personal transformation. She's the founder of Rise Up Coaching, known as the Destiny Driver Coach. She's also the author of a book entitled Unlearn the Crap about personal success and empowerment. She helps people approach transformative experiences and navigate life's challenges using her background in quantum physics, neuroscience, epigenetics, and energy psychology. She teaches people how to harness their inner GPS and understand universal pathways to make positive and empowered changes. And I'm very happy to introduce Miss Kathy Baldwin. Kathy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Zachariah. I am so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Oh my God, me too. So yeah, for our viewers, Kathy and I met at a little speakers event maybe last week, and we just instantly hit it off. There was so much good conversation. We jam-packed into a few minutes. So if this one's even half as good as the conversations we've already had, then I'm sure people are going to enjoy it. So in that introduction, there was a lot I covered, right? There's so much to you. You have a lot of different angles, a lot of different areas of knowledge that you present on your website, or that I know just from speaking to you. So where should we begin, Kathy? What would you like to tell us about yourself?
About myself, or where do I want to start?
Ooh, well, let's start with you, because who are you talking to?
Okay, so I am just a normal, everyday Gemini. I have a curiosity of a cat. So my entire life, every time I thought, I wonder about this, I actually went and learned it. And so that's why my background is so diverse, because, I had issues with addiction in relationships so I learned about the brain and addictions and mental health. And, then there was suicide touched my life through somebody. And so I went and learned all about that. I learned about quantum physics. I learned when there was stroke. Like every time something happened, I wanted to know all about it. And that's why I have such a huge, diverse knowledge base.
That's awesome. So you're an eternal student, basically.
Yes, yeah. I will be for the rest of my life.
That's the only way to be, right? If you're not growing, if you're not progressing, then you're withering away, right? And that's mentally, physically, in all the different ways. That's certainly something I could relate to, right? When I find something intriguing, why would I not want to dive all the way in? I don't understand any other mentality. I don't
No.
understand anyone that's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Next, if it's worth thinking about, it's worth going big. That's what I think.
Absolutely. And sometimes I dive in too deep, but
Huh.
I've never it's helped me in so many ways in my life. It's helped me develop and coach people in business and in personal lives. It's helped me to understand and get to the root of a problem really quickly because I have such a 360 degree of information from the mundane small to spirituality and everything in between. And it really helped me when I had my breakdown.
Okay. So a natural question after that, what do you mean? Well, what kind of breakdown was that? What caused that and what happened there?
We live in a society where everybody thinks that you should be able to do everything and be everything to everybody. That stress is a badge of honor, and that you can sleep when you're dead, and all of these other things. you know,
Yeah.
and and so especially when you add that on to a woman's brain who's constantly in motion and caring for everything and everybody. And then you add that to someone who has a trauma history and a stress history. Eventually, you can only use strength and power and willpower to get through. Your body will shut you down. I got the warnings. I got the warnings that I had, when I had fibromyalgia, when I had adrenal fatigue, when my body developed osteoarthritis. I had all of the fatigue, weight gain. I mean, my body was screaming at me, and all I did was push harder. And you can only push so hard until your body breaks you down. And that's what happened. And it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
Now, when we say we're pushing harder and persevering, even in spite of the stress signals, are we talking about in a professional setting? Are we talking about personal relationships? What was that? What were those stressors?
It was everything in my life from personal. You know how they have that list of 10 things that will break up a marriage?
Okay.
I had every single one of them in multitudes,
Okay.
deaths, divorce, financial illness, caring for, being sandwiched between generations. It was everything that you could ever imagine all at once. And when the alarm is going off and you are hitting snooze, 10 times and then rushing by downing as much coffee as you can and just pushing through, and taking Advil to deal with the pain. That's what happens in this world. It's not that I was living anything different, but it made me a stress expert because I was able to figure out, exactly where stress comes from, how to release it because it was trapped in my body. There were so many things that it gave me that I now can share.
Interesting. And I want to be clear for myself, for the conversation, and for our viewers. Kathy, are we talking about specifically how women respond to and deal with stress, or are what you're talking about apply to men and women?
The human body. The human body, and who knows, maybe it's a animal thing. We have a central nervous system, and our body processes information in multitude of different ways. We get information in from our gut, from our heart, from our senses. But when the information comes in, it processes through three parts of our brain. And the first part is the reptilian part, the hypothalamus, the amygdala, all those parts. And its job is to decide, are you safe or are you not safe? And when it declares you're not safe, whether it is an actual danger or just something new that isn't programmed already into your brain, it will turn on your central nervous system and put you into stress mode. When you go into stress mode, you stop being able to access your intellectual part of your brain. The whole stress system shuts down anything that is not required to get you away from the saber-toothed tiger, which is how our body thinks is what's happening.
Yeah.
And so your digestion stops or slows right down, because you don't need to process food if your life is in danger. It creates your heart rate really fast, so it's pumping oxygen out into every limb. The cortisol, all of those hormones are racing through your body to save your life. But if it's just an email and those stressors go off and you don't know how to turn it off, that is the main thing I want people to know, is we can't control when it hits on, but we can control and turn it off.
Interesting. There's so much to branch off that one thing.
I know.
How did we get from a state of, okay, our human body experiences extreme, crazy environmental stressors, and so we have that response. How do we get to the point where now emails are triggering that? That can't just happen overnight, can it? What? That's a deep.
Oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start with that. So the second part of our brain is where we have programs. It's our unconscious mind. It's where 95% of everything that our body does happens. And that 95% is designed to make as much of our life automated as possible. That automation makes us extremely efficient, and it's supposed to give us room to think and create and do all of these fantastic things. But if those programs are programmed incorrectly because our brain came up with a assumption or something and it attached it to a feeling, then either the feeling or an event can set those triggers off.
I
Or
see.
the fact that you don't have a program for something. Yeah, it's unbelievably complicated.
So it's like the natural processes exist, but it's like a mind virus has been installed that
Yeah,
triggers those natural processes at the wrong times.
yeah,
Would that be a basic way to put it?
absolutely. If you think about your body or your brain like a computer, and you have a really outdated software running, then when you bring in new stimulus and it's working with old programs, there's a disconnect and it doesn't work, and that creates a stress. What do I do? What's going on? How do I handle this? And it will set that whole system into motion.
Kathy, I'm going to throw interesting questions at you because I think you could handle it.
Oh yes.
How often should we be updating that program in our mind, right? Because you said if you have old programming, but what's old? How often do we need to update?
Every time we're not getting a result we want,
Ooh, good answer. Good.
because we're going to evolve. We're never ever going to be done. And that's the beauty of it. So if you New Year's just happened. People have New Year's resolutions, right? And every year they say, this is the year that I'm going to be a millionaire. This is the year I'm going to lose all the weight. This is the year. This is the year. But if you don't undo those programs, the only way you're going to make those New Year's resolutions happen is by force and willpower and just pushing yourself through, which I just explained. You can only do that to your body and your brain so long, and it takes over. It takes over. If you want to make those changes, and so if you have a weight that you don't want, or you have a financial or a health or whatever is going on, and you don't want those results that you're receiving, you must go back to the root cause of it. You must figure out what the program is. and then rewire it. You have to cut off the disempowering beliefs, and that's where the universal laws comes in. Um,
So
we're branching.
yeah, let's branch, and we could steer back to whatever you specifically want to talk about at any time. Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep having fun branching with you. Based on what you just said, right?
Yep.
It's very interesting because a lot of people have the fake it till you make it mentality, some in an unhealthy way, but some might say that it's a healthy thing to do because you have to create those neural pathways by getting in the motion physically first, and then it reaffirms, and then it becomes real internally. But and then on the contrary, if you I very much see the value of preemptive planning and reanalysis and rewiring, but could you say that people could also get stuck in that, ooh, I need to rewire my brain, rewire my brain, rewire my brain. I'm not ready. Let me do the internal processes and never end up executing? What's the balance there? When do you know that you're done rewiring or at least ready to get to the action or anything that makes you think of?
Wow. Okay. There's like 10 questions
There
in there.
was, there was. Go any
So
direction you want.
when do you know? When it becomes automatic. When things are just happening and all of a sudden you go, oh, look at that. I just automatically did the new thing. Fake it till you make it. It works if you are using it in conjunction. You don't have to go to root cause and regurgitate traumas and pains. What you got to do is figuring out where the belief is. And then once you identify where the belief is, the internal work, when you're working with knowledge of the universal laws, is so easy and painless. Our traditional healthcare and mental health is about like just dig up old bones and dissect it and make it so rehashed that it's boring. But why? It's dead, it's gone, it'll never happen again. What is the value of doing that when you can just say, oh, I created a belief, I created a story about this that is not serving me? Cut, let go. And so when you do that, let me give you a funny story, okay? If anyone's ever seen me on a podcast, I hope you don't get bored by this story. But my mother was the most amazing woman I've ever met in my life. And she was dynamic and she was powerful and she just made stuff happen. But she had this standing joke. And the standing joke was, I'm so perfect that I don't have bodily functions.
Mhm.
And that was the way she'd say it. Well, my whole life, I had digestive issues, like
Ah.
horrible, horrible digestive issues. And doctors were trying to figure out if there was cancer, what it was that was going on. My mother would say to me, Kathy, nobody has this much gas. There's something wrong with you. And we all knew there was something wrong. But like 30 years of suffering. And when I did that work when I had my breakdown, I realized I had been suppressing my digestion because I was ashamed that I had bodily functions. That's how crazy our brain is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Our brain is so powerful in both directions. And unfortunately, most people don't have a harness on their own brain and they're not in the driver's seat of their own brain ever, which just leaves them at the whim and the mercy of whatever else takes those reins. And a lot of those options that may try to take the reins don't have the best intent in mind. Or it just could be completely willy-nilly unconscious behaviors of others that, you know, um,
Yeah,
that
this
have
is a
those
joke.
damaging effects. Yeah, exactly. And that's where mindful and conscious existence comes into play for not just for your own sake, but for others. You never know what might not be so serious to you, but how it's affecting others, especially in the realm of parenting. Especially in the realm of parenting. That's one of my pet peeves. I can't stand parents that think things with their children are just like random or they don't matter or oh, it's no big deal. They won't remember because they're just a dumb little kid. Oh my God. And then you grow up and then they hear stories like this and then they think, oh, why is my kid so messed up? It's and then they blame the child. Oh my God, modern parenting is just a wreck. It's just a wreck. And that doesn't necessarily even mean that all parents are bad people that are
No,
unconsciously instilling traumas or issues in their children with their
no.
unconscious language. They just don't know any better either. It's
Yeah,
like this whole cycle, right?
yeah. We've never been taught, we've never been told how all of this works. And when I traced it back to centuries ago, right after the Dark Ages, the church became the ruler. So I'm not pulling out any religion. I'm talking about a system, and
Mhm.
it was called the church, right? They decided who knew what, who got to read, who got educated, who had money, who didn't, what the values were, what the morals were, what the rules were. I mean, the church decided everything. And they used it as a control and a power that you can only get to God through us. And so the church amassed like unbelievable fortunes and unbelievable power. And we are only slowly getting that power back. But people were purposefully denied the information about how powerful we are, because how can we be controlled if we know how powerful we are?
Yeah, that's deep. There's so many directions we can go in that, whether it might not necessarily be the church now, but what other agencies or organizations are doing that exact same thing still to this day?
Yep.
Uh, it
Can I,
all, yeah, yeah,
sorry, before I forget, can I make one other point that you were talking about parenting?
please do.
So one of my issues was I was a people pleaser. Well, in doing all the research on people pleasing, it is a trauma response. And it's a trauma response generally affecting people of normal families where there isn't trauma and there is but what happens is there's a disconnect between the child's needs and the parents ability to see it or whatever, and the child feels that their needs are not being met unless they're perfect, and so they become so sacrificing and so trying to be perfect for each person, not just as a general, like to raise yourself up to be the best version, to be the best for this person and for this person and this person, and you're always giving parts of yourself away to different people in order to heal those traumas that were probably really insignificant. A child looking for a parent's attention and they're dealing with a bill collector on the phone, or we just don't know what little things will trigger.
Yeah.
That's where our brains and our beliefs come from.
Interesting. So you mentioned you said often or always coming from like a normal family and the lack of other trauma. Because I would think that there could be other instances as well where perhaps there was like a narcissistic, abusive parental figure who did withhold love and withhold affection or even resources unless the child did, behave and jump through the hoops, whatever those were.
Absolutely. We could take it into all sorts of different directions because it doesn't matter what. But yeah, narcissists usually find themselves connected to a people pleaser.
Yeah.
Will they create it in child? I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I haven't done that behavioral analysis.
Yeah.
But from my research, it makes perfect sense because our brain, this part of our brain wants to be automated and it wants to know I'm loved. So we've got the reptilian part that says, am I safe or am I in danger? And then, am I loved? These two handle the majority of everything we think, say, do. The prefrontal cortex, where our intelligence can only be accessed if information gets past those two first stops. And if it's stopped by setting off the central nervous system with stress, it'll never make it to the emotional part until afterward, right?
Yeah.
Once the emotional part takes a look at that stress and says, okay, we got out of it, we're safe, and we did it by doing this, this, and this. Whether that was the best way to do it, whether it made sense, it doesn't matter. You arrived alive. So let's make that program. And that's where we have these bad habits coming up, because our brain thinks, well, it worked in the past, I'm still alive. I get it, because our brains are wired to be right at all times. If our brain, no, seriously, if our brain is not right, then there's a malfunction in the program and our lives are in danger. And so it will do everything possible to make sure we're right, because that means we're safe and we're alive. Doesn't matter if we're happy, doesn't matter if we're healthy, wealthy, whatever, alive. That's all these parts of our brain are designed to do.
It's a really important point you brought up on the surviving versus thriving area of the discussion, because you really nailed it. It's only when we're out of that survival mode of I am facing danger, I am stressed, let's go, 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 increased adrenaline, etc., until you completely deplete your adrenaline. It's only when that state is done and over with, do you have that rest, recovery, regroup, and reanalysis of what just occurred. And only through that reanalysis can you digest, grow, and improve and learn from. And so it's that vicious cycle of people never taking the time or finding the ability to take the time to regroup and reanalyze, because they're in that constant stress, that they just keep repeating that cycle.
Yeah, we got to remember, until you turn off your central nervous system and activate the parasympathetic nervous system, your prefrontal cortex, your intellectual part of your brain, is not connected. It can't make rational decisions. It cannot. And one of the things that has been the biggest stressor in my life was when big things happened, death, disease, whatever. That's when I would be making big, important decisions that would create a whole series of more problems, because I couldn't rationally make that decision. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
if we
and
know,
because that's often what happens, right? When we're going around about our normal everyday life, whatever that is for you, then everything's chill, everything's good. But it normally is when some surprise pops up, suddenly everything's changed. Suddenly I'm stressed. Suddenly I have to make this important decision that I've never made before in my life, and everything's unique, and I don't know what to do. That's a So being able to handle those scenarios proactively is super essential, because then it could set you in a spiral. Stressor, stressed response being non-optimal, and then that just cascading into more and more stressful things. That I
absolutely.
think that's a cycle that a lot of people find themselves in.
Yeah, absolutely. But it goes deeper than that.
Okay.
Because our hormones are set off with the chemicals of, adrenaline, what I can't remember, whatever the stress hormones are. If we suppress them and we don't let them process through our body, we are keeping those chemicals in our body. What does our body naturally do when there's a foreign chemical in there? Inflammation. We surround it with inflammation and protect it so that it doesn't affect our organs. Well, now we've got trapped chemicals in our body, which are now trapped emotions, that are trapped traumas. So we physically are feeling that. Now we're creating inflammation. That inflammation is now affecting our gut biome. And the gut biome affects every part of our body and our lives. And it's now being proved to be the precursor for almost every disease.
Certainly, certainly. And it's very interesting stuff. I've seen links talking about how autistic children will always have wrecked guts. I've seen things talking about all sorts of different ailments having wrecked gut microbiomes and flora. Very interesting stuff.
Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, they are now proving that they are coming from the gut biome first, that's the first precursor. So if we know how to turn off our central nervous system, if we know what it feels like when our gut is off balance. So those two things, I felt it in my gut. I had a gut response. Those words are so true, they're actual facts, and when we can get back to that place where we're listening to the language of our body, because our body's talking to us, it's trying to guide us, it's trying to be our GPS, but yet we seem to think of our body as a separate part of us instead of an integrated, interrelated system within an integrated, interrelated system of our world.
Yeah.
There's nothing that does not matter. There's nothing that's not connected.
Oh, absolutely. But we live in a society where everything's just random. Diseases
Mm.
are random. All these things happening are so random. The whole world created out of nothing. Suddenly there was everything. Big bang, random occurrence, right? They've top to bottom created this framework of nothing matters. You're just an insignificant speck in the galaxy. So it doesn't really matter. And that feeds so much nihilism. It feeds so much lack of achievement because what does it matter anyway? I'm just going to be dead
Oh,
and gone. I'm just
oh,
going to be in the dirt and it doesn't matter. And there's just a top to bottom framework that we've all been thrown into that sets
mhm.
us up for all of these unhealthy and downright incorrect programs and mind viruses to be installed, right? That into that
Yeah,
that internal GPS that you're talking about, that's intuition.
yeah,
That's intuition. But when you're a young child and you get sent away from your parents, that in itself goes against intuition and sent to these institutionalized things to have a formal, rigid schedule. That goes against your natural body's processes. You get told all these things that are they true, are they not, is a little bit of both. Maybe that go against your natural intuition, but you're told to not ask questions, shut up, put the answer on the test because your teacher says so. Intuition just gets stamped on and stamped on and stamped on so
yeah,
much that it just dies away in some people, for some people forever. And some people, they have that ability to eventually do break out of it. Some don't get that and build that intuition up. That doesn't mean maybe they can't, but not everyone does recover any sort of intuition. And that's why you see people that just are like robots these days,
yeah,
honestly. They are like mindless, intuitionless robots, NPCs that are just carrying out their whatever they were told to do. It's crazy. Um, you had
yeah.
a point you wanted to raise there.
I did, but I got another one at the same time. So the first point I want to make is there is a song out there that came about when I was growing up, and I hate it. It's called "Comfortably Numb."
Mm,
And that is what our society has tried to make us be, comfortably numb, because we're not empowered when we're just numb and we don't care. When we shut off our emotions, not understanding the power of our emotions, not understanding the power of our intuition, numbing it with pills and drugs and alcohol and whatever. That is the society that we have been raised in, to become those robots. But the point I wanted to make is when you were talking about the intuition getting stamped on until it's broken, I have a different view of that, and that it's a wall, that it's not the intuition being stamped on, that there's a wall between the two. And when we remove the wall by doing the energy healing, by doing the inner work, by addressing our beliefs and starting to become authentically integrated within ourselves so that we are completely aligned, that's where our power is.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because if you don't have a guiding inner voice, You don't like if you don't know what you're where you're coming from, who you are, how could you ever
Mhm.
know where you are going? And that's
Yeah,
why people feel so lost because they've been so led astray from using any sort of semblance of intuition that
yeah,
a lot of times when people do, or when something kind of hits and resonates and gets through those walls, and something kind of resonates with that internal GPS, it feels weird and it
yeah,
turns people off sometimes. They're like,
yeah,
"Whoa, this is I don't know what this is. I don't know this feeling. What is this?" You know? And then
yeah,
a lot of people shut down because
yeah.
they get those butterflies and it turns them off.
Absolutely. Have you ever thought about the Salem witch trials?
I wouldn't say they're a part of my everyday thoughts, but I'm
Well,
aware.
let's play with this.
Let's do it.
Who do you think they called the witches and the
Probably,
warlocks? Do you think
pro-
it might have been the people who were independent thinkers, who were in touch with their intuition,
yeah,
who were vibrating at a higher level, emotionally and frequency wise, that they weren't a part of that drone society?
yeah. Well, who said the Salem witch trials ever ended? They're just called conspiracy lunatics now. You know?
You got a point.
You know, who says they're done? They're just called quacks, right? Uh,
Yep. Oh, I agree. Yes, but that is an extreme showing of what
yeah,
society does when we start to evolve and become different and separate. But we're okay. I didn't want to use the word separate. That was wrong, and I want to pull that one back.
sure.
Unique, but not separate. We all have a goal, a job, a fulfillment, a place in this world, and it is different from every other person. And if you think about the tapestry and the interwovenness of everything and everybody, if we're all the same, there's no fabric, there's no depth, there's no anything. And
Yeah.
so we've been one told that we don't matter, we're just a speck. You know, you are different, you're not a part of this system of empowerment. Everything, okay, I'm going on a tangent, so
Go
forgive
for
me.
it. I'm along for the ride. Whatever you want to do.
Okay, cool, because everything that we have and live with, we're using in our outside world. So we are biochemical, electromagnetic energy beings. Those are the physical parts of our being. The energy part is what is connected to all energy, right? So if energy cannot be created and it cannot be destroyed, and we are part of that energy, how can we be any different than what makes a MRI machine or what makes a automation system that creates a car? All of those things are the exact same things that we are made of. We've just never been told, oh, you have the same power. You have full electric power and are connected to the system. You can create. And okay, I'm going to go on a little bit more of a tangent because we pulled in quantum physics and astrology.
All
So
right, let's do it.
one of the universal rules is the law of correspondence. So what is within is what is without. So when we go to quantum physics and we find that the very smallest part, and I don't know the words because I'm not a scientist. I just understand the concepts. Um, we've had an experiment called the observer effect, where whatever we go with to see is what we see. So if the scientists, when they were looking at the smallest atom, particle, whatever we want to call it, if they thought they were going to see a particle, they saw a particle. If they thought they were going to see a wave, they saw a wave, which means that it was nothing until conscious observing came into it. It was consciousness. Now, the same with the universe. The majority of the universe is what they call a black hole. Well, a black hole just means that it hasn't been created into a physical yet. It's still that primed energy waiting for consciousness. So if we can know that the majority of everything is available to us, all we have to do is put our consciousness onto it. We can create anything. We just have to know the process of how it works, how our thoughts become things, how our thoughts change our DNA, how our thoughts create our world, how our thoughts create our body, our health. It all starts with our conscious thoughts.
It has to exist somewhere first, right? That reminded me of a few things. But yeah, on a conceptual basis, I very much subscribe to the thought that all things are fractal. All
Yep.
things are microcosms or macrocosms of each other. You can use the language that you describe one thing with, maybe change the terminology, but the mechanisms are often the same from one thing to the next because there is only so many ways that things can work in this world. It's all governed by the same code. It's just the different
Yes.
forms of it. But yeah, you
Yes.
reminded me of something. Maybe I'll if I find it, I'll put it in the video. It was like a video games, right? Video
Yeah.
games super interesting, especially as they advance more and more. It's more and more real life, but not, I don't know, it's crazy. But I saw this one video and it was showing the process of a video game, right? And when you walk around the world of a video game, it looks like you're in this whole open world and everything is there and you are in like a mini city, etc. But it showed a zoomed out version of it. And there was a character walking around, and you could see their field of vision. And it was the trees and the houses and the cars and everything. But outside the field of vision, what would be on the screen was literally blank. It was literally nothing there, blank. But if you turn the character, it all appeared in real time. And then what they're not looking at, even though it was just there, disappears. And then it's
Yes.
like, is that how the world works? We would literally not know because my
Yes.
experience, like I could see it in this camera, but is it behind, that gets a little
Yes. Yes.
interesting.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
very interesting. If I'm in a
I'm so
forest,
excited.
and then it's like
Yes.
the whole like if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's around to hear it, did it even happen? Did it even fall? Or did it just appear fallen when someone walks up? You cannot say one or the other.
Well, you can.
But you
That's
can,
that's the
yeah.
thing. You can
It's not even
because
there if nobody's processing it. Yeah.
that's right. Right. Sound is the wave or the energy hitting our eardrums.
Yes.
It's other than that, it's just a vibration,
Yep.
but it's still there, right?
Yeah.
What we see goes through our eyes and into our brain, and our brain translates it based on our programs and our beliefs of what we expect to see.
Yep. Yeah, and it's all
So,
wavelengths. That's literally it's all just vibration.
yes,
People see this stuff and it does get lumped in with some, new age maybe gobbledygook, but people will sit there using their eyes to pick up vibrational wavelengths and be able to see, use their mouth and vocal cords to create vibrations to use this thing that we call language to convey messages, use their ears to hear the vibrations to process them, and sit and say, "Oh, you think everything's a vibration? Nah, stupid."
it is. Everything vibrates.
Yeah, yeah.
Energy cannot stay still.
Even physical
And that's where
matter.
the universal laws come in. One of my favorite universal laws for empowerment is the law of relativity. Everything exists in relation to something else.
Mhm.
If you look at, let's picture a courtyard scene and somebody's in the middle and people are all around that courtyard scene. Everybody has a different experience. They all have a different view. It's all getting processed through their own beliefs, their own perceptions, their own whatever. Because if we have something blocked out of our brain that is deemed unimportant, we won't see it. Even if it's right there, we won't see it. So everybody's perception of the event is true, but every single one of them are different.
That's wait, let's pause on that because is everyone's true? What if that person is running false programming in their heads and has a warped perception of even their own reality due
Well,
to a variety of things? It might
it's
be
still true
validly
for
their
them.
experience. Is
It,
it true?
it's true for their reality. There is no absolute truth except for universal laws, in my opinion. But those are laws that are not an individual fact. Truth, the way we see it, is our own reality, and that's what I'm saying. Is we create our own reality by our brain programs, by the way we filter, the way our amygdala. Our amygdala is the most amazing thing. I call it the screen door because it will let in everything that you want. But if your brain is deemed that this is not important, it will not allow it in.
I do
And
that.
the famous thing is the red car, right? You want to buy a red convertible. You never ever see a red convertible until you decide you want one. And now there's red convertibles everywhere.
Yeah.
They were there before. Your brain just didn't let it in. How many times have you gone to the fridge knowing that there was a something there, a piece of cheese, right? I can't see it, right?
Yeah.
If our brain thinks I can't see it, I can't find it, you won't see it even if it's right in front of you. I can't tell you how many times it's happened to me, let alone happening to people around me. But our brains are filters. They're filters based on what we want it to filter.
And it sounds like we're getting into the realm of even law of attraction potentially. Is
Absolutely.
that one that you subscribe to or see?
It,
It has been very it's been a buzz phrase somewhat lately, right? And I think there's validity to it, and I think it's been also kind of misrepresented in a lot of ways and kind of made to look silly in some ways. So what's your thoughts on the law of attraction?
the law of attraction is one of 12 universal laws. People only talk about that. Well, it's 1/12. You can't isolate just the attraction and not take into account the rest of the laws. But if you're using it in conjunction with the other 11, then yeah, you can consciously connect and attract what it is you want, but it requires that you understand that your beliefs are corresponding to what you want. If you want $1 million and you want to attract $1 million, but your belief system says it has a set point that says I'll always be poor, money's hard to get, any of those things that are going on in our brains, there's a disconnect between it. It all has to line up. And it's very easy to see where it doesn't line up when you look at your results. Your
Yeah,
results are either empowering or disempowering.
empowering or disempowering. How many people, even on a percentage basis, would you think are living in an empowered way versus disempowered?
Well, when we know that 2% of the population has 95% of the wealth, and the rest of the population is split there, you can tell that that means that only those who have the wealth have that empowerment mindset. Now, some of it was inherited or whatever, but what I'm saying is 95% of those people just don't believe it. So they didn't create it because we were purposefully disempowered for somebody else's power and control. And we have to undo that. That's why my book is written called Unlearn the Crap. This is the crap that we've been programmed with. It's not true.
I got a little nervous for a second there. I thought you were going to go a little anti-rich people on me, but you completely went the other way and said, yeah, sure, there's some that inherited it, but a lot of them, or even most of them, deserve it because they made it happen, because they attracted it and lived it and everything. So yeah, that's the ultimate no victim, mentality
Oh,
where it's like, yeah, people are living the life that they create. They
yes,
choose to create the life that they live, and it's
yes,
probably an ongoing thing.
yeah,
I like the term that nothing's rented, or everything is rented. Everything is
yeah,
rented.
yeah.
They are renting that reality. They have to pay that rent of putting in that work, mental, physical, whatever it is, the combination of it every single day. Otherwise, it goes away. And the same thing, people have at the bottom of whatever struggle that they're facing, they got to pay that rent to get those processes going and get to where they want to be.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily any harder to get up there than it is to maintain it. It might even be harder to maintain it once you are there. Yeah, like
It,
it's
it it's your set point. If you
yeah.
think about your brain and your body like climate control, okay? Same with our body. We have a state called homeostasis. Because energy is always in motion and nothing ever stays the same, we can never be all perfect and aligned and balanced and everything. We go in and we go out, we go in and we go out. And the whole process of homeostasis is to constantly rebalance, rebalance, rebalance. Well, if your rebalancing is in a state that is not what you want, you're just going to keep rebalancing to that state. You have to change your set point. You have to change your beliefs. You have to change your reality, your perception, your thoughts. Then your set point changes. And when your set point changes, now you're setting at a different level.
What makes that so hard to do for most people, though?
We don't believe it. We've been told a lie, like you said. We're insignificant. We don't matter. We don't have power. It's then we are told, oh, you know what? You can be acceptable if you buy this product, if you have this car, if you do this. Oh, you don't have it? Well, let me get you in debt. We'll create debt so that now you're indebted to me. It's all power and control. Instead of someone teaching us, you have the power to create. Get in knowing what your body is doing. Understand that your body is speaking to you and telling you where you are. It's not going to lie to you. But just like when I had my breakdown, I was ignoring everything about my body. And when I told you it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, it's because this person did not exist before. This person was my creation. When I had my breakdown, Humpty Dumpty broke in a million pieces. And, and I realized I didn't want to go back to who I was. So when I started to heal the past, and then I thought, okay, well, if I don't want to be that person, who do I want to be? Well, I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. I know to create a business, you have to have a thought, an idea, a vision. You have to have a purpose. You have to have structure and rules, and you have to create processes and systems. Why can we do that for creating a business, but not ourselves?
Yeah, you got to treat yourself like a business. So
Yeah,
when you went through that experience, right? Did you have anyone to help you put the pieces back together? Or did you
no.
have anyone that like was there anything that was continually just trying to keep them shattered or
Mm.
where did it come from? Did you have external resources that helped you or
No, no, I lost everything. I lost everything. And when I say everything, I mean my health, my wealth, my relationships. I was literally in a bubble alone. And when you're in a bubble alone, all the things that I was afraid of losing, all the people pleasing I did because I didn't want to lose this person, or I was too afraid of this. Everything I was afraid of, I was now living. And I was okay. And somehow I was always taken care of. I was not consciously figuring out how to make it happen. I wasn't using my spreadsheets and creating plan A, plan B, and all of that. I wasn't trying to micromanage. I was just allowing. And so when I allowed and then started to create, okay, well, the person that I am, because when all of that broke, now I'm alone with my heart. I'm alone with my soul. And part of that happened in COVID because we were cut off from our environments. We were cut off from our routines. We were cut off socially. And, we were in our own little bubble where there was a whole new reality. And for some people, it was extremely empowering because all that noise went away. But for some people, it was disempowering because they didn't know how to handle without those noise and those rules.
Yeah,
I
that
know
time.
I know I did this.
No, yeah, that's good. That time period was really effective at disenfranchising people and driving people to their lowest lows and absolute breaking points and isolating people. It was so good at it that it's almost like that was its whole intended purpose.
I
If it
believe it
was,
was.
then
I
kudos, Um, yeah,
I believe the universe
we
said
faced the
we need a reset button. Reset, people.
Yeah, we've faced some of the darkest times on an individual and societal level that we've seen, and at least in quite some time. I'm not a history person. I have my skepticism about anything that I didn't see, so I don't know what in history that was written was true or not true, but I know in the history that I know of, that was the darkest times that I've ever seen.
Mhm.
And the beautiful side of it, right, is that from that, so many people are living more fulfilled lives afterwards.
Mhm.
Now, a lot of people were absolutely crushed and decimated and driven to suicide and illness and so many other things, and I feel for those people. But such is life. Unfortunately, that is always going to happen. There is going to be people that succumb to certain things, and there's people that going to be rising up in spite of certain things. I think such is the natural order. But the people that have been able to survive and thrive and get themselves through that time, I think are living in 2024, and as 2024 continues, I think are going to live the best they've ever lived.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. When you asked what resources I had, um, my darkest moment was when I was suffering with depression and stress and everything. And I told you I had a breakdown and my body wasn't functioning. And uh, I was sent to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist sat me down and went through my entire life history of every stress and every trauma that I had ever gone through and lived through. And when he was finished getting my history, he wrote a prescription and sent me on my way.
Yeah.
He did not know how the brain worked. And I could feel myself spiraling. I could feel my brain. And I'm like, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. I can't, my brain, I'm losing control. And I could feel it. It was like I was watching it happen, but I was feeling it too. And as many resources as I tried to get to, I didn't get what I needed. And I ended up being taken to the hospital. Um, that was the moment that I said, okay, I cannot go outside of me. I have to go in. What's outside is not going to save me, but it has to be me digging down and choosing life and choosing something different and putting myself as a priority, which is not something that I ever was taught how to do. I was taught how to serve people, how to give and take it, or to give and prepare and take care of everybody else. I was never taught boundaries or self acceptance or self-love or any of those things. It was always about the outside world and what I could give. So having this moment that said, Kathy, if you're going to live, it's up to you. And you better make it happen or you're not going to make it. And so when that moment of I choose life, I choose healing, well, those choices and those decisions opened up everything I needed. It just kind of arrived, which is what made me realize that our power is in choices and decisions. We don't need to have everything. It will come when we make the choice and the decision, whether it's our brain opening up to the possibilities and letting them in, whether it's aligning vibrationally, whether it's all of the above, and we're just talking about it in different ways. But it has to come to a choice and a decision about our identity and who we are and who we want to be. And that is when we can start to get rid of the stress, because we become aligned with who we are. We no longer have to worry about making good or bad decisions, because it's either this is me or this is not me.
What do
Right?
you think is the role of external tools in figuring that out? In figuring out, who do I want to be? There's that person being like that. There's that person being like that. Okay, that looks, maybe I want to try that. Or are you advocating for blocking it all out and really just going in? Or is that even possible?
Well, you can't unless you were in a bubble like I was, because we live in a physical world.
Yeah.
There are outside stressors and environments. What it is okay. So my Drive Your Destiny program is 3 steps, and hopefully this will answer your question when I go through the steps. So the first step is to figure out what is working, what's not working. And anything that's disempowering you, cut the ties, let it go. Okay. So now you're in a fresh start.
What might that look like? What might some of those things look like before we go?
How deep do you want me to go?
As deep as you like, Kathy.
Okay. So I was a child of a teenage pregnancy. My mother was 15 when she found herself pregnant, and it was in the middle 60s, and there was no other choice but to get married. So she did. I have always, always felt that I didn't belong here, that I didn't matter, and that I needed to prove my worth. And that's a lot of where my overgiving, people pleasing, everything came from. When I went through my healing journey, and especially using the law of relativity, and I looked at, okay, chemically, my mother's emotions of shame and guilt and all of that were chemically put into my growing body in vitro, because those chemicals are what are we're feeding our fetuses, right? So I came into this world with her physical chemicals in me. Then I carried them, and my brain was always looking for proof that I was meaningless, and I had to prove and give. When I had my breakdown and I analyzed it and realized that that was an extremely disempowering belief, and it was what was leading to all of this chaos that was creating all of this disease and pain and everything in me. I looked at it and realized, okay, my mom didn't know I was coming. That's her. I knew I was coming because I'm here. I knew that I belonged because I am here. There's no mistakes. Everything happens for a reason. So just because my mother didn't know, she didn't plan it. And societally, she was put into shame and guilt for having this happen to her.
Did she plan it
No,
unconsciously, though? Did a series of events that occurred, though she was naive and could have been totally innocent, we don't have to dive into this, it's a very personal thing, but it's an interesting philosophical thing, because does everyone's choices, whether they're conscious or unconscious, leading up to certain things happening, is that all choices, even if we don't feel empowered in them? Now, again, I
yes,
understand she was a 15-year-old child, and this is a very sensitive topic. Um, but
yes.
that's a
But
that's
were those choices made consciously?
that's exactly.
And was she aware of the universal laws of cause and effect? Was
No.
she aware of a correspondence of what's happening within is what happens without? Did she know how all of this was integrated? No, we don't know it. We're just learning it. The information is coming out everywhere I turn. People are saying the same message. It's like this big bandwagon of everyone out there saying we have been held down too long and we've been denied this information. And
Yeah.
it's like we're all coming together, creating this firestorm of change.
Yeah. And
Yes.
you gave a great explanation that ties another term that gets kind of roped in with nonsense, generational trauma.
Mhm.
You gave the physical reason for it because a stress state in a mother, all of the mental patterns carrying those or have those certain chemicals that are circulating through the body. Well, how are they not going to end up in the baby?
They
And
are.
then if the baby, as they grow, doesn't process them, how are they not going to end up in their child? Duh. It's really not that complicated. It's pretty common sense of a concept. But
Yeah,
then, generational trauma gets looked at and ancestral trauma gets looked
yeah,
at as if it doesn't make sense, right? It's very
I know.
basic biology. It's basic
Absolutely.
biology.
And Dr. Bruce Lipton, he was a cellular biologist. He proved that when you change the environment of anything, you change the results, you change your DNA. So when you change the chemical environment of your body, whether it is food, nutrition, thoughts, stress, whatever, you are physically changing your DNA. And I was just reading an article the other day, and it was about we think children come into this world as a blank slate. Well, we don't. We already come in with whatever immune system. We already come in with whatever programming was necessary that was passed down. We've come in with beliefs and the chemicals that were passed down generation to generation. And one Okay, so one of the things that I did to heal myself was I became an energy healer. My thought was, okay, so if we have chemicals that are created and those chemicals go into our body, and if they are what creates inflammation, and that's all physical, then in order to release it, we need to get into the energy of it and release it. So to me, it made perfect sense. So I thought, okay, I'll go learn how to do this. And I found Dr. Bradley, who created the emotion code and the body code. And so I released like trauma like you would not believe. And one of the most serious ones that I released in my body was in my uterus. I had, I think, 249 trapped emotions of self abuse. Well, I had to have a full hysterectomy because of cysts and fibroids and all of these things that were going on in there. And so I was done childbearing. So I said, take it out. But that energy was still there. And do you know what that self abuse was? Every time I denied myself, every time I betrayed myself, every time I made a promise to myself and I broke it, every time I said yes when I meant no, every time I put someone ahead of me, every time I put myself in danger so that because I wasn't using my voice.
Hmm, interesting. Yeah, we have to be our own advocates. We absolutely have to be our own advocates, and if we're not, then who is? And then we are just going to get abused. And yeah, always there's a lot of branches off of that. The physical and energetic ties and emotional storage. That is something I am very personally familiar with. I work with a clinical shiatsu specialist, and he also has a ton of other certifications. Awesome, awesome dude. And there's times, and so he's like a medical massage guy. He's clinical. And there's times where we're working on like a physical injury or ailment or whatever, and we're unpacking something physical. And he'll hit like a deep spot. And I will have, though I am someone who has done a lot of internal work and then processed a lot of things that have happened that I've liked or disliked or that I feel have made me the way that I am or have been. Um, I live very fulfilled and feel very resolved in my day-to-day life these days. But even so, there's times where he'll hit a spot and I will have very specific emotions and even tied to very specific events come to my head. Things that I don't ever think about them. I don't hold on to them, or at least I don't try to consciously. And he'll
Mhm.
hit just like a spot in my shoulder or a spot in my like pelvis. And
Mhm.
it'll just clear as day feel like I'm back at that time. It's
Mhm.
wild. It's super, super interesting.
Yes.
And then, I allow it to pass and then I feel a little better afterwards. It is certainly very interesting how our body stores away thoughts, emotions,
Yeah.
and things that are metaphysical. There is no
Yeah.
there's no ability to disconnect the two. Super
Yeah.
interesting stuff.
And that happens when the natural process of how it should evolve and then just release like a thought passing and we just let it go. When we suppress it, when we say I'm not going to deal with this or it's not important or whatever, suppress, our body holds it. The first time I learned about this was about 25 years ago. I went to a chiropractor, and as he was working on my back, he said, "Oh, you got an issue with your mother, don't you?" and 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 well, how the hell would you know that?
Yeah,
But yeah, he was able to find those pockets of energy, and he was sensitive enough. And at first, I thought, "Oh, you're just wacko," but he was hitting real things, and that was one of my first awakening too. So for like 25 years, I've been exploring different ways that this happens. But let me share a story with you about ancestral traumas.
yeah.
I was working with a client who told me that she believed that joy was disconnected from her body, that she came into this world with the inability to feel happy or joy, and that's how she's felt her entire life. In our very first session, we went back to a trauma that went back 400 years. And the information that came out was so specific that it was very easy to understand how traumatic this incident was and that it just got carried. 400 years ago, nobody knew how to process feelings or emotions or whatever horrible thing was happening, but it just got passed down. As soon as we identified it, the body and the mind said, "You see me, now I can go." And we were able to release it, and you could see the physical change in her immediately. And every subsequent session that we were working together, she was getting lighter and brighter and smiling, and her physical symptoms were going away. And it was amazing that it was tied to something that happened 400 years ago.
What do you think of the concept of past lives? Does everyone have past lives? Does no one? Do some people? And some people are here for the first time? What do you think about that?
I'm just going to answer that with my universal laws. Everything is energy. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. Energy is in constant motion. It can change and change states. Uh, it is in constant motion. So if we're just energy, it's the consciousness that we want to know. And the consciousness is energy too. So does that consciousness go in and out of awareness? Does it go into that state of being potential? And then when consciousness comes, I mean, who knows? Who knows? I just
Yeah.
know there's way more out there than we can ever possibly know. And so I don't judge or put labels on anything. Nothing is good, nothing is bad. Nothing is true, nothing is false. It's just our perception and our reality of it,
If
in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. It's certainly interesting. I don't claim to know. I think the concept of past lives very much makes sense. But I'm not going to claim it to be 100% factual. I've seen interesting stories of children knowing certain things that they've never been exposed to that would only lead to think like, okay, maybe that did come from a past
Hmm.
life or something. I know that an art called past life regression, where a practitioner can allegedly guide someone into exploring any of their past lives. I've never got experienced something like that. I think it's intriguing, you know. Certainly worth consideration, right? Because if perhaps we do come from somewhere else or something else, and perhaps there's lessons to that we've learned that unlocking the memory to can uh can help us out in this lifetime. I don't know. It's super cool.
I,
Um,
I
yeah,
I totally agree, but it all comes down to is how important is it?
good
I just thought
question. Good
a
question.
really cool concept where Shakespeare had said to his wife, "I love you so much, one lifetime's not enough." And then they showed, I can't remember the two stars' names, but they look like Shakespeare and his wife. They physically have it. They were born on the same 400 years to the day. I mean, there were so many amazing things that it was like, well, was that love so powerful? Was the consciousness of that love so powerful that it did carry over? Was
Interesting.
it the intensity? Because one of the universal laws is inspired action. And when you take inspired action and you add intensity of emotions to it, those two become powerful creators.
Kathy, do you think that there is a purpose of life universally? Or does each person have their purpose in life predetermined and they have to actualize it? Or is it up to them to find a purpose in
I think the answer is yes to all of that.
life?
Um, but I I believe that the purpose of life is creation. That it is when two atoms collide or whatever they're called, collide, and you've got your positive and your negative charge, and now something has been created, and that creation keeps going and going and going. I believe that's what life is about. It's about continuous creation and evolution. I believe that we all have a part of it. And whether we're part of rising it up or if we're part of pulling it down and keeping it away, we all have a part. But I believe the part that we have should be, oh, I hate that word should, so I don't want to use it, is designed to be positive. It's designed to be creation, not destruction. So if we are living aligned with who we are and our heart and soul are showing us where to go, and our language is physical material, right? That's what we know and comprehend. So if your soul is saying, I want you to have a red Mercedes convertible, which my soul has been crying for years, that it's not the vehicle, it's the direction to go. And because once you attain whatever that thing was you wanted, nobody has a sense of euphoria. It's like, what's next? Because it's not the thing, it's not the arrival, it's the direction. You need to go in this direction. And when we hit resistance, we hit walls, when we hit obstacles, when we hit any of those things, it's the universe saying you're going the wrong way. At the nearest available safe place, turn around and make a U-turn. But we think when we hit obstacles and when we hit barriers that it means we failed. Instead of saying, oh no, you were just being directed through the maze. You didn't need to stop. You just needed to turn, pivot. Just like the river flows, right? It just flows. It doesn't go straight. It hits obstacles. It hits rocks in the way, and it just And I believe when we know the universal laws, we can use them just like the river.
Yeah. Nothing happens in a straight line.
No.
Nothing happens in a straight line. If anyone's that's like a stock or crypto trader, they know what a chart looks like. Even if things are going up, they're going up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. And if things are going down, it's not just down. Sometimes it is very quickly down, but it's higher highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. Everything is like that. So is life progress and careers and work and everything. To expect otherwise is to set oneself up for failure, I think. Um, God, there's so
But
much.
when you understand those movements, because I'm a trader as well, I know how to read charts. I know what Fibonacci's are, and Fibonacci's are a part of our entire world, same as any other type of math. There is a rhythm, there is a season, there is a gestation period, there is a back and forth and movement and vibration. So, can I turn the tables?
Go for it. Oh boy. Let's go.
Okay, so I've told you my thoughts, my beliefs, my journey. Um, what are yours? We're aligned in some way. We connected,
Yeah.
which to me is what vibrational alignment is. That's what the law of attraction is that we were on a mental similar vibration. We were connected. We were drawn together. There was a reason for it. So what is your thoughts and feeling about all of this?
About all of this, Kathy, that's a very vague question. I know I was throwing some umbrella questions at you, but oh golly, where do I start? Um, all right. So as a child, like a lot of people may have experienced that explore these kinds of conversations that you and I are having, I always felt that the world was off. I looked around at my peers as a young child and just felt different. I felt
Hmm.
just not like you just know that intuition was just there that just it's not right. It's not right, you know? And I didn't want to participate with most of the world. I saw other young boys running around just being dumb and whatever, which yeah, there's a valid good reason for that, but like it was just more dumb than I cared for and I don't know. And so growing up, I was always a bit intellectual and observational. I always observed the way people did things and the results that got them and social dynamics and such. And I've been experimenting with my reality from a young age. What does that mean?
Mm.
As someone who didn't necessarily feel like my peers when I was younger, a young boy, I was very quiet and I didn't necessarily have a lot of friends. I usually had like female friends when I was younger, just because they were more calm generally in grade school, and so I kind of got along with them well. And it's said that females like progress intellectually faster, so I felt just more in tune with them. Um, and so no, I didn't have any guy friends. I was a quiet kid, just chilling out in the corner. I got picked on, what have you, especially because I was a Muslim and semi-brown in a very Catholic white community, middle lower class, like you know. So I got picked on a bit and didn't really have friends. Friends would come and go, no lasting connections, right? We have class together this year, next year we don't. All right, I never talk to you again. And around sixth or seventh grade, I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like the results I'm getting. I don't like the life I'm living. How can I change it? And oh man, we could see how deep you want to go. I could probably fill this whole hour with this story, but I'll try not to. Um, Basically, from observing people, it sounds creepy, right? But I knew that one thing that people bonded over and that took inspiration socially from was music. I had
Mm.
never got into music ever. I was into like video games and stuff, really like car centric video games at that. Um, so I got into music. What did that mean? That was back in 2000, I don't know, but LimeWire was a thing. Do you remember LimeWire? Do you know what that was? God, so
Was that
Lime,
like the was that like Spotify, one of the first versions?
a very dirty version. It wasn't like an official thing you paid for or anything. It was basically you get free music.
Oh, yes,
You,
yes.
you could download like files of free music that God knows who put up, God knows how many viruses are on your computer. I know I wrecked my computer downloading everything on there, but I got some cool music. So I was downloading different music, and I guess it probably came from my father. My father was into rap music, um, and so I just kind of looked into rap music, or I just liked the energy of it, and I really took a liking to the music of Lil Jon. Do you know who that is? So
I know
Lil Jon,
he's a rapper.
yeah, he's a rapper and he's just known for screaming rap, just crazy, loud, boisterous, crazy. I don't give a F. What you gonna do? Represent like all this crazy, loud, boisterous stuff. He'd wear sunglasses all the time, gigantic chains, just like crazy energy, high energy. And it just hit me. And I just kind of started downloading it. And I dove into him and I dove into his music. And like yourself, anytime I'm interested in something, I go all in. So I wanted to learn not just about his music, but about his everything. And I learned about his everything. And the more I learned, the more inspired I was because he had this, his rap presence was just animalistic, loud, screaming, ignorant, boisterous. But then I watched his interviews where he was calm, intelligent, eloquently spoken. And this broke a dichotomy for me. This broke the dichotomy of there are smart people, which I thought I was, and there are popular, cool people. Suddenly I realized you could be both. And there's a lot of points of inspiration I took from Lil Jon. He was one of my first role models, and then it was very fantastic. Not only was he both those things, but he always wore those shades because when he takes them off, he's actually cockeyed. He looks really goofy. His one eye's this way, his one eye's that way, whatever. So there's a couple of snapshots of him, but he always wears those shades. And so I saw someone that was dealt that hand in life. And instead of just being, oh, like I'm gonna cower in the corner, nobody look at me, I'm ugly, said, F it, I'm gonna throw on some shades, make myself world famous. I just thought it was so cool. Not and he was just a boss. He started his own record label. He wasn't just working for someone else. He started his own label and then was hiring other artists. I just loved the energy. In that age, in that era of rap, at least in my perception, there was a lot of other rappers that would like take themselves super seriously and try to be like, ooh, thug life, criminal, criminal versus him, like he was just having a good time. He was making like party music and like not taking himself too seriously, I thought. Just doing some like thug gangster stuff too, but then like making silly music videos. I just like that energy and I just use that external tool to do what I needed internally and make that shift. And so that was over a summer that I had that experience. And then I just started down making those downloads. And I started wearing different clothes, right? I started instead of just wearing general whatever clothes my mom bought me, I was like, all right, I want to change my style up. And I went a little ridiculous with it. I'm a little bit of a ridiculous person, but I started, it was the style back then. I went into like the big, like oversized clothes and the big chains and the hats and the bandanas and that suburban gangster look, right? And I did it to a ridiculous extent. Anyone that knows me from grade school will attest to it. But I went all in. And I went from, hey, I'm gonna be that quiet, or I am that quiet kid that nobody knows that's in the corner, to you are not gonna have a choice but to see me. And I went in with that mentality to school and just started getting different results. Suddenly people were seeing me. Suddenly I was having conversations, and suddenly people were liking what they got to know. And I started having friends male and also girlfriends, on the romantic level, start having more interactions just socially. And yeah, and so that was me, and I just that was my first example of redefining and reinventing myself.
Yeah.
And it was so transformative for me because although, the clothes eventually got smaller and the chains got a little smaller, still like my jewelry, I was able to carry with me the attitude of if I put myself out there, then good things will come, and I am successful socially, and people do like me. I am cool, and also smart, and it all stemmed from then. And then since then, you just go on about your life, and I did the university thing. I actually, funny you say what you said before. I initially wanted to be a psychiatrist. Well, initially I wanted to be a psychologist because I've just
Mhm.
always been interested in psychology. Like I
Mhm.
said, from a young age, I was observing what people are doing and why, and figuring it out. So I always had an interest in psychology. I took a psychology course in Monroe High School. I don't remember the professor or teacher's name, but she was awesome. She did an awesome job. I'll try to find her name and mention it. She did an awesome job of presenting psychology as a formal field of study, and I just fell in love with it even more, and I'm grateful for her. And then, so yeah, I was like, all right, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna help people with psychology. I've always wanted to be wealthy. So when I realized, okay, psychiatry is like psychology, but you make more money, you go harder, you go deeper. I was like, okay, let me do that. I was always not a fan of pharmaceuticals. I never ever was like, oh yeah, I have a headache, let me take Tylenol, even though my mom would, say, hey, take an Advil for this. No, no, no. I never liked that. That's a whole other discussion. But I was like, all right, those things could help people. I make more money, psychology, bam, I'll go that route. Then when I solidified myself more anti-pharmaceutical, I was like, okay, let me go for psychology, let me be a therapist. I got halfway through 4-year university and realized that that just sounded like a miserable existence to deal with everyone's problems in an institutional setting all day. And also, I wanted to make more money. So I was like, I ditched that and decided I was going to go the industrial psychology route. Finished my bachelor's, added some business classes in there, and I was like, okay, well, you can't really do anything with a bachelor's in industrial psychology or in the industrial psychology field. So I started doing other jobs, corporate whatevers, ended up at a financial firm doing like basic bottom of the ladder stuff, had a promising career in a financial cubicle, did that for a little bit, and just my job was so easy for me that I had a lot of downtime, and I would just spend time like scrolling through Instagram, and I just started to come across certain content about certain things, and it just something resonated, something hit, and I was like, let me explore this stuff. This is interesting. And I plunged down every rabbit hole imaginable, the real ones, the fake ones, the somewhere in between ones, and just started going hard learning about, you always know the world's not quite right, but let me learn just how it's not right and how it's quite wrong. What are they doing to our food? What are they doing to our water? Why is school the way it is? What is Federal Reserve? What is fractionalized reserve banking? What is institutional religion? What all of these things.
Yeah.
What shape is the world? What are there aliens? Are there reptilians? Are there, just because it all gets lumped in, all the real stuff, the fake stuff, the this, that, the other. So I just started diving into all of it because, well, something was hitting. I realized there was much I didn't know. I lost my mind, had my own little breakdown, and I was like, God, there's so much going on. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Unfollowed all those pages. That lasted maybe 4 hours the next day at work. I was like, it's just I have to know more, right? Are they eating children? I don't know. So I just started learning more and more. And as I was diving into that kind of information, because that's an interesting section of the internet, right? There's some truthful stuff, there's some wrong stuff, either because people are just themselves misled, even if they're trying to be helpful and sharing what they think is true. I think
Yeah.
that there's certain parties that are vested in spreading about false information that seems true to throw people off track. I think there's just a lot of wackiness on the in the internet, but there's a lot of interesting stuff as well. Um, and I just started making rapid changes in my life to live in accordance to what I saw best. I quit my job very soon after because I realized I was feeding the machine. I was working for a big financial institution. I was commuting an hour, sitting for 8 to 10, having a nice little lunch break. Ooh, maybe I could walk around the courtyard for half hour, sitting, and then commuting home, going to the gym. By the time I got home from the gym, passing out, and I mean, I was part of the matrix, right? I was feeding the beast. I was part of the beast,
Hmm.
and so I couldn't do that. I could not do that. It was dissonant to me now. So
Hmm.
I didn't have any plan other than I can't do this. Let me, do some sort of entrepreneurial venture, work for myself. I spent some time um, just exploring different entrepreneurial things, linked up with some young entrepreneurial fellow minds, did a little this and that. How valid was any of it? Some of it was better than others. Um, Long story short, God, and I've just been readjusting from there. Just been readjusting from there.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. I don't know if you realize how much your story is exactly what I was talking about for my story.
Yeah, it's all the same. It's all the same. So many people, and you and I are
Yeah.
not the only ones, right?
No, absolutely. And the number two step of my program is identity. And do you realize that every time you changed your identity, Lil John, he was the one that opened you up to, you can create your identity. You
Yeah,
don't have to just be who you think you're evolving to be. You can create it.
yeah,
And you created a whole new you. And then that new you opened up new opportunities. And it, your story was just so beautifully an example of everything that we've been talking about.
yeah. Thank you, thank you. And I try to tell it openly and honestly, the good, the bad, the ugly, because there's been plenty of all three of those. And I think, if I could help anyone or any amount of people kind of along their way, like the people that I took inspiration from, then
Yeah,
that's very meaningful to me, right? That's
yeah.
very to me.
And that's why you're doing what you're doing here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so grateful to be doing this podcast finally. It's something that I had in mind for quite a few years. It wasn't necessarily time. I don't think I necessarily had myself together enough to even approach it healthily or even represent myself as well as I would have wanted to. But it has come to be the time for a variety of reasons. And so I'm so happy to be here with wonderful people like yourself and all the people I'm meeting and bringing on as guests. It's super exciting. I'm gonna blow this podcast up. I'm really looking forward to it.
You are absolute. When you were talking about do you have a purpose or do you create it? Did you not realize how your life was folding and unfolding and leading and guiding you? And eventually you grew into who you are now, and you're going to continue that evolution. And your purpose right now, what you're doing, connecting people like me with the people who are listening, we're all banding together. We're creating a whole new vibrational um, uh, web, and we're raising the vibration of the world. And that is my dream and my hope, that enough of us put enough of this beautiful creative energy out into the world that we can actually affect the hate, the anger, the wars, the control, the power, that all of that will fall away because we realize it's not about controlling anybody else. It's about growing into ourselves.
Yeah. But also controlling ourselves in a positive way because so many people don't have that control over ourselves. But yeah, I love your YouTube. I poked around your YouTube channel and that intro video you said, where like you're just on here trying to find your peeps, find your tribe. That's that's all of us, right? Because us people who have these thoughts and have these conversations, have this intuition, have this spirit, often don't find ourselves with our tribe around us, in our immediate family, in our immediate community, workplace, etc. And that's why the internet is such a beautiful thing where you can explore conversations like these and meet people. My inbox is always open. You know my social media channels, viewers, I will happily, when I have time, have discussions with you and help you figure yourself out. I'm not asking for money. I'm not a coach for hire. I'm just here to help people.
Yeah,
Um, it's so cool. That's what makes the world go round.
absolutely. And I was an outlier my whole life as well. And I think us outliers, where we don't fit anywhere, we're the leading edge of this paradigm shift that we're in.
Yeah. Yeah,
Systems are
and we need
breaking.
that. We need that. We do need the leading edge, right? And because from an honest standpoint, I don't think I'm special. I think I'm super cool. I think I have some fantastic qualities, but there are plenty with all those same qualities and then some. Um, but I think there are natural leaders, and I think there are more natural followers, and those that are, like following the curve and along for the ride more, even if they do are in a good direction. But yeah, we need the strong to speak up because that's what is better for the, I don't want to say weak, but you know what I mean? Those that don't
It's
necessarily.
vibrational. It's
Yeah.
vibrational. So, have you ever seen Dr. David Hawkins' frequency of emotions chart?
Yes.
Okay, so you know that the frequencies of emotions, they vibrate like the frequencies of a channel or microwave or any other vibrational frequency.
Yep.
And the lowest vibrations are anger and shame and fear and blame. All of those are low vibrating emotions. And those low vibrating emotions are actually vibrating at the same of colors, the dark colors, right? And because color has a vibration, it's truly amazing. But when you go up through the feelings and you start getting into love and acceptance and joy and passion and all of that, that vibrates at a different level. So I don't think it's that people are lower, or it's just the vibration.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just the vibration.
My favorite color is red. What does that mean? Does that mean anything?
I don't know. What does it mean?
Um, I love red. I like red cars. I like red everything. I don't know. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that because you mentioned
I
because
don't,
you mentioned the
because,
different correlations to the colors.
well, yeah, it's a passion color. It's a very strong color. But what it means, we choose that. We choose it. And I can choose what red means, what I think red means for you, and I can make that choice. And you can make that choice what red means to you. But that's part of what I'm saying is we all have that conscious ability to take anything. Little John took the fact that he had cross eyes and turned it into a signature style with the
Yeah.
sunglasses. You know, we have the choice to use everything positive or empowering or disempowering. Everything. The guy with no hands and no legs, he's a superstar on TED Talks. He's like one of the greatest motivators that's out there. And he could have taken that and turned himself into feeling like a victim and that he'd been, but he took that and he took it and made it his positive story, empowering story. And we have that ability to take anything and choose the story that it means to us.
Yeah. Yeah, all things have their equal and opposite, right? So from great pain and great suffering, you can use it and transform into great beauty. which is an interesting thing, right? Because then that invites in the question of what about those people in the middle, right? This is something that doesn't get talked about a lot because everyone loves to celebrate those people that, oh, I came from the ghetto, we had no food, I had no family, I was shot 10 times, I have no arms, I have no legs, and now look at me, now I made it, blah blah blah. Blah. But what about those people that are just like in the middle that are just living like those average menial lives and can't break out of, even maybe it's a comfort, or maybe it's they don't have that great downtrend to springboard them up. Those
Yeah,
people suffer quietly a lot.
yeah,
That's an
yeah.
interesting question.
But
Uh,
they're comfortable.
yeah, and that's
That's
something I
the,
experienced. Like I said, I as a young man, we grew up in a I'd say middle lower class, or maybe dipped below that threshold at times. Um, it felt like the worst place to be. And
mm,
looking back on it, I see the detriments it had because those people that are dirt poor, they have an inspiration to be hungry in life. The people that are rich or wealthy and well off with connected parents and wealthy parents, they have the resources to bam, make something. Us that started out in the middle, we have quiet, mediocre comfort.
that's where the
That's a
masses are.
hard thing to break out of. There's
Yes.
no, because you have a safety net, and it's like hard to, and you have training wheels always. I think it destroys a lot of men.
Yep.
And I'll speak about men specifically.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it destroys humanity, and that's part of the conscious disempowerment that I believe has been created in our society to keep us controllable and quietly, comfortably numb. That's why I'm having these conversations, because my goal is that people don't have to lose everything. They don't have to break down. They don't have to have these super stories if they can wake up in the process. And so that's why I'm focusing in on stress and burnout, because that is a physical expression of what's happening inside. And so if we can take that opportunity, that window of vision and discernment, and start to apply it to empowerment and slowly undo that societal lie and bring people to their true, authentic selves. It's my fantasy.
Do you think it will become a reality? And if so, to what degree?
I believe that positive energy outweighs negative energy anytime. Do I think it's going to happen in my generation fully? No. I think we're in the start of it. I believe we're in a massive paradigm shift. I believe that our systems are breaking down. You brought up cryptocurrency. Our monetary system is falling. Our government systems are falling. They're unsustainable. They are putting these band-aids on, trying to keep it, but they weren't designed to work in the long term. We need to come to my belief. Okay, so I'll tell you one of my fantasies. I don't know what you're going to do with this on the podcast, but one of my fantasies is that we all become so empowered that we are never employed again, that we contract our work out, we source out, we create different parts of ourselves. That, yeah, if you want to be a cashier for somebody, although I truly believe that AI and automation is taking out the menial, repetitive tasks in our world, which gives people the opportunity to step into their higher selves, to go into imagination, innovation, creation, and not have to do those repetitive menial tasks that keeps you comfortably numb.
I agree. It is a tool that can be used for speed and it can be used for creation. I think people that are afraid of AI or think it's some evil thing, perhaps they've been succumbing to certain propaganda. Like all things, that there's a good and a bad side. It can be used for a good handful of bad things, and it already is. But it also is used for wonderful things. I use it in my cancer organization to speed up my tasks so I could get to helping more people. I use it to speed up the creation process so I could do more good things, just like you were saying. There's a wonderful side to it as well. But you touch on an important point I just want to mention, in that a lot of people say, "Oh, the system's broken. This system's broken. This system's broken." Is it? Or like you said, is it functioning exactly as it was intended, which is just harmful by nature? And was it destined to fail in the beginning because House of Cards can only stand until the wind blows? Um, yeah,
If you go back in history, before the Dark Ages, they knew secrets that we're just finding out now. They
yeah,
know about the energy of our bodies.
yeah. It's it's
Hippocrates,
it's the cycle. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, we knew about it spiritually. We were communities, we were tribes, we were connected to each other. We supported each other. That it wasn't about like the communist idea that everybody's equal. It's about that we're all interconnected and we all matter.
Yeah.
Whatever part of the puzzle we play.
I think we are in the dark ages now. I think all things are cyclical. And I think to look around at the state of society and the state of humanity and how it's been for the last 100 years at least, to think it is not the dark ages is obscene. To think and observe the things that people are doing to each other, and the people that have been allowed to be in control and how they've been running the world, to think that this isn't the dark ages is obscene. Well, knowing that all things are cyclical, yeah, I think there have been, you could put whatever terminology on it. I think there could be like a bronze age or a silver age, a golden age, and then a dark stone age. I think that's where we are now. And then people have this image where a stone age looks like just caveman or medieval castles or whatever. But does it not look like the crime that we have now? Does it not look like the state of everyone being suffering that we have
Fear.
now? Uh it's dark. It's dark, right? Does it not look like how we mutilate each other? How the systems of that we trust with medicine to be healers are actually just mutilating people down to babies as soon as they're born? Is that not the Dark Ages? Do we not have evidence of buildings and structures that have been created with advanced technology beyond what we are capable of today? And we think our iPhones are something special? It's an interesting conversation. But yeah, I see advancement happening, and
Yep.
advancement accelerates, and I think that it is one of the laws of nature and of this realm or of this world or of existence that good always wins in the end.
I agree. Now I'm gonna bring a female side to that
Yeah.
talk. Okay.
Okay.
When creation happens and you think about a fertilized egg, okay, and it starts to grow in the womb, what happens just before the birth? It is painful. It is tight. You are being squeezed to your limit. You are being forced into a different world. You don't know where you're going, but you know you can't stay where you are. You're being pushed. Everything is painful for both the mother and the child. That's a process, and it's a birthing process. and it's ugly and it's messy and it's painful, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
necessary.
And that brings in that's a fantastic point, right? Because have these dark ages and these dark times and these last handful of years where they just wrecked everything necessary for this beautiful advancement that we see happening now, right? It's easy to get mad at the people that appear to be evil and acting very evil, but are they sent from God or from the universe, whatever you are they necessary playing their role in order for the
Yeah.
good to wake up? Are they
You,
just the alarm?
we live in a world of polarity. There has to be another side to everything. You cannot have light without dark. You cannot have love without hate. But you can choose where you put your focus.
Yeah. Oh yeah, certainly. That's an important because a lot of people, I fell into it as myself as well, first diving into these things, get so caught up on this is happening and it's bad, that's happening and it's bad. Oh my God, they're gonna get us, they're gonna get us, this is gonna get us, they're killing us all. And people either give up and go completely doomer black pill and say, ah, well, nothing matters, they're all gonna kill us. Or they just get so stressed out and freak out that they kill themselves either quite physically or like mentally, and they paralyze themselves. Yeah, I think it's important to be aware of what's going on that can be allegedly called evil or very accurately referred to in evil ways, but do what you can do about it and about yourself. That's what matters. It all comes back to you. Don't get caught
But
up
love,
on.
love,
Go ahead.
love can't exist without evil.
Mhm. Yeah. I want to touch back on something that you branched off of. I know is for example's sake, and it's a very accurate example and a very fantastic one. But the process of pregnancy and birth is something that is very important to me and something I've done a much study in because hey, it's where we come from, right? And I care about myself, I care about my future children, I care about the future mother of my children. So been an area of study for myself. It is, I very much imagine, very painful. But I will confidently say that it doesn't have to be as painful and scary and horrible as it's painted to be. And this is a whole branch, right? The way in which modern birthing takes place is so upside down and backwards and wrong and disconnected top to bottom that it is so traumatizing to the mother and the baby that when it doesn't have to be. It's like designed to kill you. Right. It's absolutely crazy. We could go down that rabbit hole if you want, but I just want to set the mental framework because a lot of young women, especially, I've heard, are so afraid of childbirth that they don't want to have kids. They're so afraid because of the horror stories of people that mostly go the conventional way of birth. Like, oh my God, it's so painful, so painful. I can't do it. Women have been disempowered to feel like they can't do it, even when they were literally designed to be able to do it. That's so sad. That's so sad, and it's such a nihilistic thing that young women have been led to think, and it's horrible for them, and it's horrible for humanity because obviously we need the next generation, right? Um, I just
But
want to touch
but
on
but
that.
that to me is part of the disempowerment. You're too weak. You can't handle
Seriously.
physical pain.
Yep.
Let me take care of it for you. I'll cut you open. I'll give you pills. I'll make it easy. Who said it was supposed to be easy? Nothing is
Great
supposed
question.
to be easy.
Yeah.
We are supposed to challenge. We are supposed to grow. Just like if you use the example with bodybuilding, right? You have to tear the muscle down in order to grow it. We must have stress. We must have appropriate creative stress, not destructive stress. And that creative stress comes from pulling the elastic band to its absolute limit. And that's where it gets all of its power to fling.
And pregnancy is a fantastic example of people trying to avoid the necessary pain that is going to be okay in the end by using these false solution interventions that makes the pain worse in the end. Let's go into the pregnancy one, right? You get the epidural, you get the drugs to lessen the pain. Well, now what does that do? That ruins the connection and the ability to regulate the pelvic muscles. And now the spasms are even worse. And now the pelvis is even tighter. And so it's harder for the baby to come through. And so now you're in more pain because the muscles are spasming incorrectly. And now you need more epidural. And it's like a ping pong back and forth where if you just let it alone in the first place, let that baby come out when it was good and ready. Because I don't know about you, but I've never seen a female's body with a timer like an oven, right? And suddenly we have these thoughts, oh, that baby's late. They got to come out now. And God, if you make it past all the suggestions for them to sell you the expensive cesarean section surgery and do
Yes.
give birth originally and properly, then you're gonna, oh, all right, we got to drug you up now. Time to induce. They're late. They're late. Oh, it'd be dangerous for you to go on any longer. What are they gonna burn in the oven? No, like they're meant to be there until they're meant to come out.
Well, there are exceptions.
Always,
And oh,
always,
but
always.
that's where we take those exceptions and we try to make it comfortable and easy on everyone. Dying is painful. Birth is painful. Living is painful. Loving is painful. When you love and then you lose, the only way that pain is not going to hurt is if you didn't love. There is pain on the other side of everything good.
Yep.
And when we try to avoid one, we're losing out on the other.
And then even if you do somehow hack your way to getting the other without the one, without the original pain, what is it worth? Does it have value even? Because if all things are relative and you do achieve that thing that you're searching for without the work, what is it worth? And that's where that brings in
We're
a
down
lot of
another
questions.
rabbit hole.
Yeah, that brings a lot of questions, right? Because what is someone's goal? I think a lot of people seek to be happy. And that's kind of been glorified, right? Let me just be happy, be happy, be happy. The goal is to just be happy, be happy. But can someone even achieve that without work and doing things that aren't necessarily happy things, but they're fulfilling things? You know what I'm saying? When we aim for happiness, happiness is fleeting. And happiness, so do you ever get that? No, and then you never feel like good, right? And that's where a lot of problems stem from, I think, because people chase this, I should be happy, or I accomplished this now, I should feel happy, but I don't. Who says we're supposed to feel happy? I think we're supposed to feel fulfilled. I think we're supposed
On
to do,
purpose.
yeah, I think we're
Yeah.
supposed to do things and feel fulfilled looking
Yeah.
back at what we've done. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be happy, like giddy, like a child. You
Have
were
you
ha
ever laughed at a funeral?
laughed at a funeral? Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Have you ever been so angry and somehow you can't stop smiling?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
that is
I
what,
turn it all into laughter.
well, but that's what our body does.
Yeah.
Whenever we go to one extreme, it wants to bring us back to the median, to our homeostasis. So if we're feeling anger, it's going to make us do something to the opposite, like laughter and smile, because it has to bring us back to this normal range. We cannot feel happy all the time. We must be taken down to go back and forth. It's part of the rhythm. And that to me is what is one of the things about the law of rhythm when I can teach people that if your expectation of what should be, instead of, okay, I didn't fail, I'm at this part of the cycle. And yes, happiness is one part of it, but it is not all of it. You must experience the fullness of it in order to appreciate it all.
Does that mean, so what does that mean for people who are born with it all? How do they have that journey?
I don't know. You see a lot of them falter
Yeah.
because they've got nothing to push forward. One of the things that I remember hearing Will Smith say to his kids, your mom and I are rich, you guys are poor. And I thought, that's the way it should be, because then every person has their own path, their own journey, they're not living someone else's life. They're not riding the coattails of someone else, and they're actually getting to fully experience who they are.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I've heard a variety of very wealthy and prominent people have that mentality, and I certainly think that I will take that route when I am a father. Um, Will Smith is a whole thing in himself that we can get into him, but yeah,
It was just what he said.
yeah. For the example's sake, yeah, I think it's important because without strife and tribulation, and I'll speak for men. I think especially for men, with genuine struggle, I think it's hard to become a man. I think for women it is different. I think in the future when I have daughters, I will raise them very differently than I raise my sons. I think I will make my sons have struggle, always with the guidance, the healthy guidance, but make them struggle, but also at the same time taking care of my daughters in a bit of a different way. Because I think there is inherent biological differences and mental differences between men and women and between young boys and girls, and what allows them to healthily develop into a fulfilled adult man and woman.
Absolutely. And so I'm going to take exactly what you're saying, and I'm going to take it a little farther into the chemicals of hormones. A man is at his best when he has a certain level of testosterone in him. You have to do certain things to create testosterone, and a lot of that is struggle and chase and go after, and not it. Once you attain whatever it is, then that testosterone level comes down. Now that's part of the rest and everything else. For women, for them to be in their glorious strength, they have to have estrogen. And when estrogen is poured out of a woman, when she has to live and pull in all the testosterone of do and be and create, like all those masculine traits, where a female's energy in the greatest is creation, and it's wild and free. It's not structured. It's creative. It's music. It's flowing. And a man in his testosterone is building and creating, and you know what I mean? It's strong and powerful, and it's those two. We have both masculine and feminine in us, but it's that dance of the hormones that makes that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely essential. And it's no secret that today in general have no testosterone. Zero, zilch, none. They're essentially women with their testosterone levels. It's obscene. And that's responsible for much of the chaos and horrible disharmony that we see today. Because it is those low testosterone male that hate themselves, are upset with the world, have no masculine imperative duty to take care of their woman, to take care of their children, to take care of their community, to be a leader, to self-improve, or do anything great.
Mm-hmm.
Testosterone is the number one thing, and the lack of it that has been the cause of the decline of society, and it's been a purposeful attack. I'll say, I think,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's
Yep.
many things that purposefully attack men and young boys testosterone from the school system to
Mhm.
the soy formulas to
Mhm.
all the foods and the plastics and everything is just attack on testosterone. And look what we have. We have a bunch of men who are afraid to stand up to so-called authority figures, even when they know better, and they allow their families to be subjected to a bunch of nonsense. We have men that are basically forcing their women to run the household because they don't have a backbone. And in the absence of masculinity, a woman will develop a hard masculine shell. So now we have all these masculinized women running around who are just crazy because there's no way for a masculinized woman to be sane because they have to have all these massive coping mechanisms. Yeah, I'm using aggressive terminology, but
That's why
it's
I broke.
yeah, yeah.
Zach, that's why I broke. Because I was out of alignment with who I was. I wasn't using my natural strengths, my natural. I've come to realize that it is good to be wild and free. It's good to be loud and upset the apple cart. That's what feminine energy does. It creates. Whereas the male world wants structure and rules, and you know that it's though that society that we're living in that is taking the best out of both of us, telling men to suck up your emotions, don't be a girl, or all the other names that are called. Your emotions are your guide. Your emotions are telling you what is happening inside. Your emotions are a strength.
But the important thing is to make them a strength because those
Yes.
emotions can also, if a man, because men are also just taught there is that see, and it's a multi-leveled mind F because we always think, oh yeah, men are told, not to have emotions, not to have emotions, not to have emotions, but at the same time, men are told they should be more sensitive and cry more and like really feel their emotions and process it. They when they are taught to deal with their emotions, they're not being taught to process them in a healthy way and turn
Yes.
them in to the positive transformation. They are taught to just sit and stew in them and oh, cry, woe is me. That's the missing part. That's why it's a multi-leveled
Yeah.
mind F.
And that's where my energy healing comes in, because you can take all of that out, because when you suppress you can't feel anything. So men end up only feeling anger, or that's the only emotion that they know is safe to express.
Yeah. Now these days, I don't get like upset often, but when I do, oh my God, I have my most productive day I've ever had. I have done so much these days, and the last time I've actually just gotten pissed off was many, many, many months ago. And oh my God, I got so much done. It was the best. It was the best. But
You were.
I know how to use it, right? I felt that, and I actually chose to carry it. And there
Yeah.
was at any point during that like productivity rampage, I could have brought myself down.
Uh-huh.
I could have like just transmuted that energy and say like, look, like, all right, it's over, done with, I'm done. But I'm like, no, like I chose to carry it through that day because I just was fueling myself. And then at the end of it, I sat down and purged, right? That's the goal for men with emotions.
Yeah.
Experience them,
Yeah.
understand they're valid, understand that you may not have caused them and whatever, but work with them. It's
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
So why not use it and get
Yeah.
some things done?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then suddenly at the end of the day, I had less to be pissed off about because I
Absolutely.
because I solved some problems that I was
and
having.
you and you work that energy through your body. You didn't suppress it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I was doing stuff in the external world. I was working out. Yeah. You see my home office is also my home gym.
Cool.
So yeah, I go back and forth between bam, 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 workout, bam, 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 get this done, get that done, and I think that's super essential. That's super essential.
Absolutely. that is what keeps testosterone and keeps you at your prime. But you also have to understand that you're not just one. We are a blend.
Yeah.
And there you have to cycle through them, just like you have to cycle through sleep and awake, and you have to cycle through hunger and thirst and satiation, and everything has a cycle. It can't stay stagnant. So you can't be all tough and men and making stuff happen without that quiet reflection and feel it. And that's where, okay, we're going in a whole different tangent right now, but that is the beauty of masculine and feminine energy together, is that a man gets all of those emotions fed to him through the feminine. And I'm not saying male or female, I'm talking feminine, masculine. Okay. So that feminine love is the nurturing part that the testosterone needs when it's settling. So instead of getting it from an outside source like alcohol, drugs, or whatever, you're getting it through the chemical transformation between the two. And the female gets her estrogen up when she is being loved and cared for. So that one act gives both exactly what they need in that moment. And it happens through every part of creation. You have to be able to use the blend of the positive and the negative, and the blend of the masculine and the feminine, and all of that, and know that it's all the way it's supposed to be.
Exactly. And those masculine and feminine traits, both within men and women, are the most beautiful parts of men and women. For example, a man, yes, use anger or use, that energy, be intense, be, powerful, be whatever. But it is also core to being a man, and the most important thing, to be able to be soft, to be loving, to be, and when I say
Protect.
soft, I mean like welcoming, to be able to create that safe space for his women and children, to be able to caretake. It's a masculine imperative to take care of others,
Yeah.
which is thought of, caretaking is thought of as feminine. But no,
Yes.
men have such a deep, inherent sense of empathy. I think
Yeah.
even more than women in a lot of ways. We feel for people. We see suffering and we're like, oh my God, what can I do about that? And that's some of the beautiful parts of men as well in operating in their healthy masculinity. On the female side of things, a woman, yeah, we think of as soft and watery and flowy and creative, yeah. But some of the most beautiful parts of women are when they're able to healthily be powerful and step into that masculine frame a bit in a healthy way, such as, well, you ever mess with a loving mother's child? You better
Oh,
believe you're gonna face the fury
oh
of a
yeah.
thousand men, you know?
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And there's
I
other
do.
ex there's other
I do.
examples, and maybe the language I use hasn't been the most accurate or whatever, but the point I'm trying to make is when a man and a woman knows how to when to embody their masculine and embody their feminine, or briefly step into the feminine or briefly step into the masculine at the right time, is when
That's
we
what
get
it's
the
meant for.
most out of life.
That's what it's meant for. So I'm going to tell you one story, and then I think we're going to have. I know you've got something coming up in a few minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
So my son is in his 30s, and he has two sons of his own. And he invited me to come to swimming lessons and see my grandson have his swimming lessons. The pool, we go into the family change room. The men are actively involved, putting on bathing suits and doing everything. The women are there active. But when we got to the pool, it was the men in the water with the children. It was the most beautiful thing I saw was fathers fathering instead of standing on the sidelines. That was these men showing these children how important fatherhood was, because when I was raising kids, absentee fathers were normal. Single women parents were all over because men were just walking away from their responsibility. Now our society is starting to understand how important that role is.
It's such an interesting conversation because there's always nuance, and I think there's always overcorrections and over doing things in the other direction too. Because I think in this modern world, another problem that we're facing is men being second mothers and not
Mm.
actually being fathers. I think
Mm.
there's a phenomena occurring where men are doing a lot of traditionally mothering things, and it's super good to be helpful. But I think a lot of men aren't necessarily living as true to their imperative as men and going out and continuing to conquer and provide for the family in all those masculine ways, and then losing that internal testosterone. I mean, we know it's been studied when men are around babies, their testosterone plummets. And now, is that good for anyone? If now that man is now like losing his drive to continue to be able to protect and provide for his family, it's an interesting conversation, certainly.
It
And that's
is,
why I
but
just want to bring up there's like an importance to not overcorrect generationally or within our own family like cycles or societally. Because one can cause a lot of damage. Yeah, the
yeah,
father's being totally gone, but also the father's being there, not in the right capacity and being there maybe even too much. What damage could that do? Right? Where's
yeah.
that middle point?
And I've never heard that. So that brought up something for me, that it's probably because a a person with high testosterone, sorry, would not be able to meet that baby's needs
Mhm.
because it requires a different level to deal with that kind of caretaking of a infant that is totally helpless.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's part of the flux of, but here we're going to come right back to what my coaching, what my book, what
Oh
everything is
my
about
God,
is about.
please. Yeah, please bring it back. Bring it back.
Okay, is personal alignment, knowing who you are, knowing when you're out of your own integrity, being able to read the signs of the chemicals and everything going on, knowing when men are out low on testosterone and be able to say, my testosterone is low because of this situation. I need to do this to take care of myself, and understanding that once you get there, okay, now I need to get level, and now I need to be loving and supportive and caring. And now I need to step into who I am and what my dreams are and what I want to create. And we all need to know who we truly, truly are and bring that best to ourselves without the societal shoulds.
So that is what your programs that people can hire you for or
Yes,
explore that you've done. That's what
yes,
you work with them to help them get to that point. Do you
yes.
work with men or women or older folk, younger folk? Who specifically should reach out to you for work like that?
Anyone who aligns with me. I've done some work with men. I love working with men because they're usually really hurt when they're coming for help. They're usually really hurt, and when you can show them the beauty inside of them and take away the shame, and be able to have someone say, whatever happened, whatever you did, it was part of whatever, and clear out that junk and now step into the new identity. It's just as beautiful as seeing a woman or a child or anyone else finally just blossom into who they naturally are. So there's no external pressure and force going against you. You're in flow.
That's beautiful. And that's very important, a thing that you touched upon, because men are the forgotten class. Men are the the brunt of who deals with all the stuff and who are forgotten about. How many programs are out there in all sorts of capacities? Oh, this for women. Oh, that for children. Oh, this for women. Oh, that for children.
It's
Men,
because we
men,
haven't made it safe for men to explore who they authentically are.
yeah.
They're in where women were in the 70s, just rediscovering a new part and starting to, I think when women started to have that woman's movement, and now women started overcompensating and becoming very masculine and very, you remember the suits where you had the big broad shoulders, and I don't know if you remember, but I do.
Yeah.
You're younger than me. But it changed the dynamic between men and women. And now women were being able to have a voice, but men didn't know where their voice was or where they fit because the dynamic had changed. Well, now women are starting to have a natural voice that doesn't have to be a hard, masculine, push it down your throat voice. It can be a soft voice, a welcoming voice.
And a part of
And
that whole thing that occurred is that while that was happening, any masculine voices were being demonized. Were being absolutely and utterly demonized in a lot of ways.
but some of them should be.
And that progressed over time. Oh yeah, listen, there's some nutcase men out there, just like there's some nutcase women out there, right?
Yeah,
Everyone has to be hinged in some regard.
yeah,
But a lot of the good masculine things got lumped in with
yeah,
bad masculine things, right?
yeah.
Um, but
And people became afraid to be who they authentically are.
That's all what it comes back to. So on the scope of helping people get back to who they authentically are, what kind of like what are your offers? What kind of things can people do to work with you? And then where can they find you? That would be, yeah, please play, what are your websites? Where can people get in touch with you?
I'm sure I've given you all the links of everything, but my website is riseupcoaching.io. My book website is unlearnthecrap.com. Uh, you could start with the book, unlearnthecrap.com. It's on, or Unlearn the Crap About Personal Success and Empowerment. It's on Amazon. But I do have programs. I have VIP days. I have coaching. I have energy healing. I have a lot of different ways that I can help and work with people. But it's authentic because I will not give more than someone is willing to invest in themselves.
That's
So I can't carry anybody. I can lead, I can guide, but the work has to be done by the individual. And I will support and help anyone grow with the information and help be the bumpers of life, and help kind of make sense of the journey, because I know the road to hell and back. I know it very well.
I certainly don't doubt that, and I think that you have a beautiful mind. I think that you have a
Oh,
lot to offer to anyone that is to work with you. It's not often that I would recommend a man go to a woman to seek guidance on how to live fulfilled as a man, but I certainly think you might be able to do so in a healthy way. Um, so I'm not knocking it. I think you have a lot to offer, Kathy. I would love to invite you back on the show anytime that you'd like. So many of our conversations today that we've already had were not finished because other interesting conversations took over. And I'm sure we could explore a world of other topics, whether it is more specific to you or we just get on and just go for it. So I would love to have you
love
back
it.
on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
I'll,
on that note, I'd be
yeah.
really curious what the comments of people who have been listening to this conversation, because you're right, we weaved in and out of so many different topics.
Oh,
What
yeah.
resonated?
Oh, yeah. I'd love to hear it. My podcast, it's up and coming. It doesn't get as many views as this conversation definitely deserves. Um, yeah, it'll get the eyes on it though. And I think maybe one day we'll do a live stream. Once we have viewers, people could actively ask us to comment on stuff. I think this is going to be an awesome collaboration continuing, Kathy.
I love it.
This is
I
super
love
cool.
it. Thank you.
This is super cool. Thank you very much for coming on. I hope everyone
Thank
enjoyed
you.
the show.
Thank you for having me. As soon as I saw you, I felt energetically attracted to your energy, and I knew that we were going to have an amazing conversation.
Doesn't have to stop here.
It won't.
But today, that's all. Well, if you've made it this far, then congratulations. You have an attention span that's far beyond the average person in the civilized world. So good for you. 2.5 hours. That was a long conversation. It's the longest episode I've done so far, but probably not the longest that will ever be. Thanks for sticking with us through our assorted tangents. Kathy is an awesome guest and someone I could talk to for hours and hours, quite evidently. So, super happy to have had her on, and I really hope that you enjoyed the conversation, whether you were watching, listening. I hope that you got some good, actionable lessons or some interesting things to ponder going forth. As always, if you've enjoyed the episode, please give some love by liking the video, liking the audio, subscribing on whatever platform you enjoy listening or watching on. And yeah, make sure you subscribe. You'll get notified about all of the future episodes to come. There are many coming your way. Anything from feng shui to psychology to Ayurveda, trauma, spirituality, all sorts of different things coming. I'm going to keep bringing you these episodes as fast as I can get them edited and published. So be sure to stay tuned. I am Zach the Health King. This is the Health King's Court. Ancient wisdom, modern health. The up and coming #1 podcast in the health and wellness space.